Is there such a thing as too much luck? Is there such a thing as too much fun? Messing around, wondering how it's taken so long. I'm really so strong. It's not too much at all.
Welcome to another week of Too Much with Denise Love Hewett. We are here today with Kelly Lamor Wilson, a woman near and dear to my heart. And I'm going to read her bio before I tell you what we're here to discuss. Kelly Lamor Wilson is an American stage and screen actor and producer. As an actor, she is best known for her role opposite Tom Hanks in Sony Pictures' A Man Called Otto, in which she plays media journalist Sherry Kenzie. Kelly is also widely recognized from her work in Billy Porter's directorial debut for MGM, Anything's Possible, where she had many cool wigs, amazing wigs, along with her roles in the horror cult hit Freaky, Summer '03, and HBO's Mrs. Fletcher. In 2024, Kelly made her Broadway producing debut with The Hills of California, a new play by Jez Butterworth, directed by Sam Mendes. She also created and performed I Am Woman, a concert for female empowerment, a benefit concert for women's rights, which debuted off Broadway. Most recently, Kelly produced and performed in Reach for the Stars, a cabaret for a broader way, a benefit concert in partnership with Idina Menzel's charity organization. She currently serves as executive producer of the SAG short film Pickleback, premiering at LA Shorts this summer, and is the producer and star of Fucking Swans, a new play premiering in London this fall. And I'm delighted to have Kelly here because we are talking about a topic that is something I'm intimately familiar with. Today, we are talking about professional heartbreak. And for those of you that know me, you know I had a deep career heartbreak when I shut down my startup about 3 years ago. And for those of you that don't know me, I spent nearly a decade building a startup that was very core to my purpose and mission in life. And it just failed. It just didn't work for a number of reasons that had nothing to do with me, a lot of them to do with systemic inequity. And I always say is the most significant heartbreak of my entire life, trumping human death and relationship endings because it shattered my reality and was a very integral part of me reshaping and rebuilding how I want to live and work in the world. It's a lot of reason we're here doing too much today, exploring new pathways and magical thinking to give people different ideas about how they want to live their lives. And so, Kelly, thank you for trusting me with this and being vulnerable with us today and telling us about your big professional
I'm
heartbreak.
excited. You know Glennon Doyle's term of excited and scared? I'm Skype
Yeah,
right now. This will be fun. I don't know what's going to come out. So this will be great.
but it's okay. We can let it be honest. And so why don't you start us with how you decided you wanted to be an actor, what that big dream felt
Oh,
like.
wow. It was innate. From my earliest childhood, honestly, feedback, communication to my parents was always that Kelly in preschool, in elementary school, Kelly is the actor. Kelly is in class the one who knows all the words to all the songs. I ran to the dress up box every single day when I was like 3 years old. And I have all these little like mementos, you know, when you go to preschool and you have those things at the end of the year. It's like, my favorite thing is, or what I want to be when I grow up. From the day I was 3 years old, it was like, I want to act or I want to be an actor. And in first grade, it said, I want to be in moves, but it was supposed to be movies, but I didn't know how to spell yet. But it was like, it was this greater thing than I even knew at the time. And I didn't even know what that meant, what that looked like. There's no one in my family who does this. So it's not like I had someone very close to me familiarly to look up to in that regard. It was just something that was very much inside of my soul from day one. And
Kids are very clear that way. I I find that kids have a clarity around their purpose that as adults we lose sight of. And when we're super young, a lot of us can identify exactly what we want to be. My brother wanted to be an inventor. He's an inventor. My sister wanted to help people. She's a nurse. I wanted to be a performer. I'm a performer. It's like crazy that when you listen and when parents nurture those drum beats to see how they come to fruition.
Absolutely. I'm so blessed and privileged, honestly, that I have a family who has truly nurtured that idea and that career, because they had no idea what that would even look like. And neither did I. And it's interesting, too, to look back on, because as my career progressed, I found the theater when I was 10 years old. And I was one of those kids who, like, my parents always wanted us to have activities, my siblings and I. They wanted us to be involved in sports or some sort of skill that would end up helping us along into our adulthood, that we could translate with social ability and things with people interacting in the world. And I was athletic, but I never found like my niche. There's never something that made me feel like that passion, that pulse. And so one day my mom found an acting class in the local newspaper and was like, "Do you want to try this?" And I was like, "Yes, oh my goodness, please, please, please." And I found it, and it was just this place where I felt like I was home, like I belonged. And I think because I, again, didn't have that example close to me in my life of an artistic career field, I always kind of felt like an outsider and an other. And then I found the stage, and it was this place where I could be fully myself, express myself emotionally, and that was praised. Not even necessarily praised, but just accepted and celebrated.
Normalized, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because then once I found the theater, I became that theater kid that was like, "Oh, theater is the only way. Like, that's the craft. That is what real acting is." And now looking back, it's funny because my entire career journey has completely now enmeshed the multiple mediums and formats. And now seeing that when I was very, very little, it all started with film and movies, and I wanted to be a movie star. I think that's interesting. My core child, just like you said, like those things that we say when we're younger that we want, that we know, knew all along that that's really where my calling card is. And along the way, I've garnered skills that, of course, have helped the breadth of my career and have made it so fulfilling in different ways and avenues. But it's interesting to see that first foundational pull was to being on screen.
I always think like 13-year-old me is so pumped on my life. 13-year-old me is like, cannot believe this is my life. And adult me is like, girl, we have some things to do. We're not where we want to be. But 13-year-old me is excited. So I want to talk a little bit about, as you started to get real roles and be in this world, how you felt, but then how the dreams grew.
I had a very unconventional path, and I think a lot of people in the arts end up doing things that are quite out of the box. And I think that's what artistic creativity is, denying the status quo and saying, I can do something different with my life. And so I made choices. They were very pivotal forks in the road at different various life points that honestly society subscribes to, that I countered and then said, that doesn't feel like me. For instance,
Can you give us an example?
So my senior year of high school, I decided to homeschool because I was auditioning for college musical theater programs. I was already commuting from Atlanta to New York on the weekends and in the summertime to audition for projects and train for Broadway. And I turned 18 halfway through my senior year. And so my junior year before, I knew that was all coming up, and I had this pulse in me that was like, this is going to be a big shift. This is a big year. And I went to my headmaster. I went to a private school, a faith-based school. And I said, "Listen, sir, I am ready to essentially leave the nest about 6 months earlier than the rest of my high school peers. However, I've been at this school since kindergarten, and I'm wondering if I can still graduate and get my diploma from here. I have a 4.5 GPA. It's a college preparatory school. I was like, I'm auditioning to 26 colleges, and I will have all these acceptance letters for your statistics for the senior class if you let me graduate." And he looked me in the eyes at 16 years old and said, "You will make a bad name for our school if you decide to do this. And if you decide to pursue acting, you will go to hell." Yes.
What?
And I sat there in front of him, and I knew that you were wrong. I just didn't believe it. I didn't subscribe to what he was trying to get me to conform to. And
It's also just a wild thing to say.
Yeah, it was wild. And
Wild.
it took a lot of strength and resolve because when you're a teenager, when you're a child, you're impressionable. And all I wanted to be growing up was a good person, a good human being.
Mhm.
And I respected authority. And I, of course, like had the grades. I was like this straight A type A kind of girl. And so to hear that from somebody that I had respected really took me aback and was kind of the start of my entire resilience journey because I listened to myself in that moment and I didn't let him choose for me. I still chose myself and chose what I knew to be true for me. And so I left. I ended up homeschooling. I got my high school diploma from like a homeschool group in Georgia. It was the wildest senior year, and it was the best decision I ever made. And the irony too is, so once I left, I turned 18 halfway through that year of my senior year, and I started booking jobs. I had an agent in New York at the time. I had an agent in Atlanta. I was flying back and forth for auditions, and I booked 5 jobs that first 6 months. And then I moved to LA, and the first big film that I was a part of was called The Case for Christ, which is a Christian movie and happens to be based off of a book that my high school teaches in their curriculum at the school for the senior class in their Bible class. So lo and behold, my entire class was now reading this book, and they ended up watching the movie in school as part of their curriculum. And when the film came out, the school posted me on their page as an alumni and like claimed me as their own. And I had a choice in that moment too to say, am I going to stand up for myself and voice that, hey, you didn't ask for my permission and I'm not an alumni because you wouldn't let me, or let it pass and know for myself, like, wow, this is interesting. And I chose the latter. I chose not to say anything because I was like, it's not worth my breath and my energy. I know what's true for me again, and I don't need the world to necessarily hear that. I know it for me, and my close friends and family do too. But yeah, it was a very interesting, to answer your question, it was a full circle moment. And to start my career in that way of choosing myself, knowing what was right in my intuition and my gut. And of course, it wasn't an easy decision. Like, I was 16 when I made that choice. And thankfully, I had the support of my parents. But then along the way, when I am starting to work and still find my footing in the real world, I'm thinking about what that person said, that authoritative figure. And I'm then also grappling with, am I a good person? Am I a bad person for choosing this and actually following my calling, which I know to be true for me? And
well, the hard part about that is that it's one thing to be like vindicated. Like I had a guidance counselor that told me that I would never get into NYU, which is where I went to college. And it was largely because it was out of reach for where I was sitting as an academic. Not out of reach, but just I was on the lower end of the statistical applicant. And I knew that that was what was true for me, was that that was a part of my core destiny. And so I ignored her. I applied early decision and I got in. To everyone's surprise, because I went to a high school outside of Manhattan. So it was a lot of people were applying to NYU. It was very competitive. There was a lot of people that applied that had much better grades and SATs than me. But I had made a point of getting to know my local rep. I'd made a point of getting to know the university I was applying to there. And so they could put a face to the application. And I remember feeling very vindicated that I knew what was right for me. There was never like a moral question. Like the issue I take with what your headmaster did is that it presented a moral quandary in your life that never should have been presented. It's one thing to say, I don't agree with the life choices you're making. I think you'd be best to stay in school here. But to question your integrity as a human being, that is the part that I have a hard time with, because that is not something you just say vindicated and leave behind. It's something that has planted a seed that clearly you didn't really let grow, but had it been someone else, that could have very easily have grown.
I mean, honestly, it was something that I carried with me for a really long time, genuinely. And there were other facets to that contextually that I realized with growth and with clarity that there was a lot more to that entire decision than just my calling. I was verbally and emotionally abused by my high school drama teacher at the time as well.
Oof.
And I didn't quite realize the magnitude of that until I left. It came back around about 4 years later when I was in LA and validated and through different parents and teachers at the school. That's a whole other facet of this. So with both of those, honestly, moral questionings at play with two facets of my life that I held dearly, which was and still is to this day, spirituality and my artistic endeavors, it took a lot for me as a teenager moving into adulthood to see what those seeds that were potentially planted or at least thrown on my garden were and not let them dive too deep. And then also, it allowed me to question what I do believe and what I stand for and not let anybody else tell me what to believe and or what to believe about myself. It's something that I struggled with for a long time. And I'm grateful because in those first years of my career, things progressed very quickly. And I was met with other major life choice points along that way too. Like I decided not to go to college within that. So first I decided to homeschool, then I decided not to go to college and was met with a lot of lashback for that decision as well from coaches who I was working with to go to college and people saying, oh, that's a dumb decision. Why would you decide not to go? That's where you train and fester your career. Basically thinking that my momentum was just going to end because of that decision. And I, again, made this choice for me. I said, this does not feel right for me. And my parents were backing me at the same time and listened to what I knew to be true. And yeah, let me move to LA and just continue my career. It's definitely been like, while I look back at that younger self and say, wow, you truly are so magnanimous and in your resilience already, and you don't even recognize that in yourself. I will also look back at her and say too, that you have no idea the things that you're about to uncover and discover about that entire situation too.
Well, the choices we make then, they're not always conscious choices because we don't have enough of like a toolkit yet to really understand what's driving those choices. I think a lot of them are in the interest of keeping ourselves safe or listening to that deep guttural call of there's something more for me. And I think it takes a while for like the trauma, because I had a very toxic, abusive boyfriend in my early 20s, and it took about 6 or 7 years for me to really understand how traumatic that experience was. Because I just sort of bulldozed through it. Because I was like, I moved to LA. I was like, I'm never going to see him again. Never thought about it. Just focused on my work. And then like 6 or 7 years, I was in therapy, and my friend was getting engaged, and I had set her up with his best friend, and I realized they were getting married, and I realized I was going to have to see him at the wedding. And there was this thing in the pit of my stomach. Oh, I have not acknowledged what that experience did to me or how it affected me. I've not processed it at all. I just left it behind and I thought it'd be gone forever. And those seeds are there. And sometimes we have to have deeper psychological safety or different circumstances to acknowledge it and feel safe enough to go there. And my therapist was a big reason why I was able to do that. But I think it's very normal to realize the time I make a decision to keep myself safe and then later being like, oh, let me actually unpack what happened, and now is the time where I have the ability to face it.
I think it's a amalgamation of different resources too. Like a book that changed my life that I found was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which helped me see, oh, it's not that these things are happening to me. It's that these things in my life that are messaging that might be around me have actually nothing to do with me and have everything to do with the people outside of me, and I can choose how I respond to that. And I'm not judging myself for that, nor judging other people, because I'm sorry for both of those adults who said that to me as a teenager, or because it's obvious to me that there was something really hurtful going on in their own lives, and I don't wish that upon anyone. And I'm now so grateful for both of those situations, because in all these situations really, is because it actually helped me listen more intently to my calling and helped me make these decisions that have set me on a course for my life. There's been different books and films that I've seen where I'm sitting there and I realize, oh, wow, I'm not alone in my experience, or through honest conversations with people that just really let you know that you're not alone. And I think even that part of it too has continued to become a part of my own mission as an artist. Is It's helped me really cultivate my own sense of self and artistry that is always evolving. But then it deepens relationship, and it's helped me even find friends like you, who we have these very deep conversations and honest conversations. But it's because I know what it's like to go through things, and now I'm not afraid to talk about it because life's too short.
Yeah. Yeah. You've had a big unfolding. I've known Kelly quite a long time. She was like very young when I first met her.
Yeah. Well, you gave me a book. Do you remember that? When like something,
Which
oh my
book?
gosh. See, now I can't remember what it was called, but it actually changed my life.
I'm like, which book? I read so many
Or
books.
was it? Yeah, it was you.
I'm sure I gave you a book. I'm sure I gave you more than one book at one
You
point.
have.
That feels very real to me.
Everyone who is in therapy, which if you're not in therapy, I highly recommend, but it's a journey. It's not just like a one session and I'm okay, like the trauma's cleared or I know exactly where to go,
No.
so it's been
I also don't think my personal philosophy on all this is that the trauma doesn't clear. Like we're not just like, ooh, healed, it's over, it's done. What happens is that whatever the blaring horn that's been beeping at you in your life, all of a sudden that horn gets further and further away. And you have more control and more agency over the choices you make. But certainly when it comes to like my bag of shit, like it still comes up. It comes up. I just have a better ability to see it, recognize it, and not give into it. And even now, the decibel at which it comes in is not nearly as high as it was when I was 25. When I was 25, everything felt extremely loud and overwhelming, and I would just cry or yell. And now I have more control over those reactions. I still have stuff that triggers me all the time. Like every week on the phone with my mother, there is something that activates. And I've just realized now the things, for example, I was talking to my friend yesterday, things that really activated me a year ago were happening a couple weeks ago. And I was like, less activated, still annoyed, but it's not derailing my mental peace. And that is the work. And so I think that's the important thing for people to know. And that's a thing for me to know, which I was like, it's not going to like disappear. It's going to become manageable and it's going to create less friction in your life in a way that you feel like you just have a better agency and understanding over the choices you make. Like trauma's not driving the car. You're driving the car. And trauma drove the car for years. For most people, it drives the car maybe their whole lives. And so that's really what it's about, is that you're getting in the passenger seat, in the driver's seat, and trauma's getting in the passenger seat. And that's the switch, but it doesn't disappear. You just have better capacity.
It's all about the framework of your mindset around it, honestly. It's like I learned to not define myself by those experiences, but to see the value of them and know that they don't have power over me. I am empowered because of them. And through the healing I've had because of those experiences. I think it's just only made me that elasticity of resilience, right? Like it's only made the stretch back, like it's like a thick rubber band now. Whereas before, I think over time, when you go through those things, at first your rubber band is like pretty loose and dangly. So it might take a little bit for your resilience to like bounce back. And now it's like, oh, try to stretch that because I'm full steam ahead. And then again, of course, the triggers come back and then I have different tools now to handle it.
The thing that sucks about being a human is that we become wise through challenge. It's like we don't grow if we're not tested. And it's very irritating to have to come to your edge every time to grow and expand, especially when I think you and I are people that seek growth. Let's talk about this big career heartbreak. And then I want to circle back to resilience because I think we can dig a little deeper on that subject. But let's just start by framing it up so everyone's on the same page as us and talking about what you just went through in your big career heartbreak.
So I, full frontal disclosure, was up for my dream role as an actor. And I heard about the opportunity from a Deadline article a year ago now. And I saw it come down the pipeline and I texted my team immediately and I said, literally, quote, "My entire life has led me to this moment." And they responded and were like, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is perfect for you." And it honestly, this story doesn't even start just a year ago. Like my entire life, I have been told that I emulate and look like or remind people of a specific figure in Hollywood. And she's very well known and respected, and that's a huge compliment and has become something that I look up to, and it has been a framework of my dreaming of what this industry or what my idea of my career looks like. And so cut to 2024, they announced this big project. Oh gosh, I have chills thinking about that day when I saw that announcement, and I was like, oh my gosh, the timing couldn't be better. This is it. All of those things I've been through, everything is leading me here. And so I had texted my team and said, let's stay on this. And this is before they were even casting. And I started manifesting. And I started dyeing my hair lighter, blonder. I ended up having jury duty last year, which is kind of a parallel to the topics of this specific major iconic property, IP. So I method dressed as the character to jury duty back in May and showed up every day as this person. Like it was a full thing. I stayed strong in that belief of this is meant to be. And a few months later, they announced they were doing this big open call for this role. And I knew it was now like a worldwide search to find her. I decided to trust my gut and just say, you know what, I'm going to lead with joy in this experience and really have fun with it because this is so much bigger than me. I went through the process of truly just playing with the character and embodying who she is, and essentially ended up getting like a callback and an agency appointment for the role. And I went through 6 different rounds of auditions. And at the end of 2024, so now we're in December, after a session with the creative team where it came down between people who had been hand selected by this figure herself, this famous woman, iconic Hollywood powerhouse, I was told at the end of 2024, you are in the mix. We love you. You are brilliant. And stay tuned for next steps in 2025. So I went into Christmas and the holiday season and I was so excited. I mean, I was elated. I remember receiving that news and I cried tears of absolute joy. Wow, my hard work is paying off, like all of these things. Now I'm honing in on the final portion of this entire journey. And this is it. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I was talking about it. I was the most free about it with people in my life than I'd ever been about any role before, celebrating it, claiming it. And 2025 hits. And I'm sure like your experience and like a lot of people's experience this year, it was just a very different start to the year than we all expected. And mid-January, I received a call that essentially there had been conversations in the creative room and I was no longer testing for the role. And it was an interesting phone call because it was the first time in my career when I heard this voice inside of me before I spoke anything, any response. The response inside said, "Do not despair, my child. It's not over."
Oof.
It's not over.
So clear.
So clear. And I listened to what they were saying, my team, and I said, okay, that's interesting to me. I'm shocked by this news, and I don't think it's over. And they were like, okay, we don't want to get your hopes up necessarily, but and I said, no, this is fascinating. This is not what I expected. But I was so calm. I was so calm and so peaceful. And then I started the grieving process. And I kind of had this flicker of, in the back of my mind, it's that same voice saying, it's not over, through the whole process. And I still don't believe it is, which is interesting to me. And the role has since been cast and since been announced, and it's very public and it's out there. And there's been choice points along the way too within that framework that have been very different from other things that I've experienced. So now I think what's happening with this heartbreak, this immense heartbreak, is finding, again, letting go of this specific experience and also seeing the beauty of what it has brought me and seeing the hope that is still there and the capacity for dreaming that I still have. And it's about, I think, now seeing what that dream looks like that is not the idea of what I thought it was.
Yeah. So I want to touch on
Yeah.
two things, which is one, to want something that deeply and to have the opportunity to go for it is a massive life gift. I'm gonna like cry talking about it.
Oh.
Hold on. When I was younger, there were so many things that I just like really wanted out of life, and I would just go for them, like with just zero doubt. And I did all these crazy things in my 20s where I got all these jobs. And then after my big career heartbreak, I don't want things in the same way. And I recently like had a moment where I went for something and I got it and it felt really good. And I was like, wow, like I forgot what it feels like to want things. I forgot what it feels like to like go for a dream, whether it's big or small, and to be that excited about life and to have the capacity to strive. And like most people don't even try, they don't even go for these things. And so I just want to clarify the fact that you had this heartbreak, you still had the experience and the feeling to go for that, which like most people don't even get the opportunity. And as someone who's just reclaiming wanting, God, it feels good. God, it feels good to really fucking care. Feels really good to care and not be so numb or like I'm still pretty detached from outcome these days as more of like a process focused person, but it feels nice to want things again. And so I just I want to say that because I've been on both sides of this, that that's a really big gift.
I receive that. And I feel that too. I really do. It's so parallel to being in love with a partner. And love, there is no love without loss. There will be loss in your life. And that doesn't mean that you don't fall in love or go for love because of that potential. Those experiences are what shape you as a person and like it bring the fullness of your life to you. I learned so much through the process and I found that gift of joy through this, of seeing the fruits of what it's like to taste with the full senses and want something and go after it. And
being an artist is such a process of falling in love over and over again with your work. That's such a good parallel because people don't understand that the feelings that I feel when I go for the things I want, it is the same exact feeling as falling in love. It is the same exact feeling as heartbreak. It is the same visceral level of pain and euphoria and all the rest. And that's why I say it's like as significant as any other loss I've experienced because I feel it on the same level.
Something I've honed in on recently is understanding like the artist's life is such that we experience our careers and our art as children, really. Like they're products of our being, of ourselves. And so to lose that is absolutely heartbreak and is so beautiful too. Like again, to have the experience of feeling that deeply for something is beautiful. And I'm so grateful that I'm the kind of person who is seeing my sensitivity as a superpower and seeing my empathy as a gift and feeling all of those things from this dream. It can become a challenge to accept in oneself when there's other structures around you, like either like family pressure or society pressure or whatever it is, that don't necessarily operate and feel those things too.
Oh, it's the most challenging experience to navigate when if people are not there yet in their lives, they're not pursuing the things they love to that degree. They don't feel things to that degree, which in capitalism and Western culture, we have made productivity our worth. Therefore, most people are not actually doing the things that light them up. They're doing the things that help them survive and pay their bills. And that's fine. But the people that have the courage to go after the thing they really want, and when it doesn't work, it's not a simple process. It's not a simple grieving process. And I found this to be very challenging when I was very stuck. I mean, my grief process, I'm just coming out of it. It was like 3 years of I had nothing to give. I was very stuck. And a lot of people don't understand that experience because they haven't allowed themselves the opportunity to go for that, to like go for the thing they want and fail. Because also, some people that do go for the things they want, they
Yeah.
get it. They get it. And so they also don't, they're like, yeah, I went for my dream and it worked. And I had probably 10 of my peers who were building startups at the same time as me. They got it. They have massive companies. They did really well. And they don't get it on the same level. We will all have some sort of failure or heartbreak in life. That's just an inevitable part of it. But it felt like a very isolating experience because I was talking about professional heartbreak and people were like, it's just a job, get over
Right.
it. And I was like, it's not a
Right.
job.
No, and that's the thing is it's interesting because even as you're saying the word failure, and what keeps coming up is it doesn't feel like failure. Like it's not a failure. It's redirection, and it's actually bringing me to that same dream that I have. It's just not the idea of what I thought it was. And I think what it becomes is, okay, I'm going to shed this layer of this, of my thought of, okay, I am collaborating with the universe, with God, whatever have you, to realize that calling that has been placed in me since I was in preschool. We are collaborating on this together. And I think I know where it's going. And so I thought I knew that it was going to be this.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
in this moment in time on March 31st, 2025, is not that. But that doesn't mean it's a failure. And I don't believe that.
It's you're touching on something I hated. The reason I used the word failure is because everyone around me was using it. I agree with you. I hate that language because it was a massive part of my personal growth journey that is the reason we're here having these conversations today. And it felt like failure at the time, I guess. I think I've adjusted that as I've gone on. But you're also harking back to what I wanted to talk to, which is your inner voice that said it's not
Yeah.
over. The highest version of ourselves knows more than we do. The highest version of ourselves dreams bigger than we dream. We can only dream what we believe had happened in a 3D reality. We don't even have the foresight of what's happening 20 years from now, what innovation is going to come in, how things are going to evolve. Our higher self knows. And our higher self is collaborating with us to make our dreams come true. I believe that as you do. And so that's the part where who the hell knows what it's not over yet means? Like, you don't have to know. At some point, you will be shown. And that's how I feel because I just talked about this on a recent episode that I recorded, which is that I kept pulling this specific card in a deck I use that was like empire builder, empire builder. And I was like, okay. I was like, bitch, let's go. Like, I'm building this startup empire, da da da. And then when the company crashed and burned, it's clear that's not the empire I'm building. Like, that is not it. What is it? Still don't know. But the point is, at some point I'll figure it out. But it was like this inherent reminder that while that was happening, when I look at it now, was affirming me that something bigger than me sees what I see for myself. And so that's the part of being human that sucks, is like the patience of the not knowing. But it is not over. We just don't know.
I think the entire precipice of being to that edge, like you mentioned earlier, and seeing something, and then I still think falling, but it feels like a free fall over the edge, I think has really helped me embrace that level of uncertainty and stand tall when I am questioned or asked, which is the question, about what's next, and I don't know. And I thought that what's also really interesting is, I don't know if you know the app, The Pattern, but I literally 2 days ago, I
have it.
I looked back at that 2 days ago, and a pattern that I'm currently in, fated surrender. The starting date is the day I got that phone call that I was no, yeah.
Stop.
And it's so interesting because my grieving process, my healing process has led me to this current understanding of what surrender really means, which for a while I thought meant letting life take me and being like, you know what? Okay, fine, take me. I surrender. And now I see it as, oh, no, 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 no. I am dancing with the wind. I'm swimming with the tide. I'm not letting the ocean carry me. I'm not seeing wherever way the wind blows is where I'll go. We're in this collaboration together. And so I surrender with
Yeah.
you and not necessarily to something.
No, it's I trust that I don't need to control this because I trust you enough that I know together we are going to the
Yes,
same
and
place.
then I think seeing the imagery of dancing with or swimming with brings joy to me too, because it shows active participation and a choice to bring joy out of all of these things. And I think that's been my intention for 2025 is joy, which again came from this entire experience of getting so close to this dream to manifest. Like I literally found that spark of joy within this experience and was like, I want to find this every single time I'm passionate about something. And so it's been my thing for the year. And now I'm seeing it too as like, oh, wow, there still is so much joy here. And regardless of the loss that I have experienced, there's so much beauty to come out of it. And honestly, I'm still kind of like, again, navigating it all. And I do feel like,
Well, I want to take one
okay.
step back because I know you found the joy
Mm-hmm.
space, but for many of us in the
Mm.
pit of professional
Yeah.
heartbreak hell, how did you even like find the joy space? Like what were you feeling and what planted the seed of this can feel different?
I honestly was allowing myself to feel everything that I was feeling and not because I'm not talking about toxic positivity or happiness. There's a fine line. I think first what I needed to do was sit in stillness, which is also fascinating
Mhm.
because in
It's a really
big, oh,
big one.
huge. It's the only way that I could actually listen to myself and know what I needed to give myself to and allow myself to feel. And it was interesting is that all of fall and even into January, I was traveling. I was never stagnant at all, or not even stagnant. I was never seated and still. And then got this news and I came back to LA and I have been in LA for the longest stretch of time in the past year. And that has been the biggest gift because sitting in that stillness has helped me feel it all, acknowledge it all, and ask for help. Genuinely. It wasn't until I had some big major moments of release when the cast was announced and a couple other like articles and things that came out with that, and I had major moments of release and friends that I leaned on and chatted with. But there was a stark moment. It was March 2nd, the day of the Oscars. A friend of mine reached out to me over a voice memo, and I was taping an audition and losing that side of that want and just being like, who knows what's going to happen? I'll just do this, which is losing that joy, right? And a voice memo came in, and I didn't have the opportunity to listen to it in that moment because I was literally actively auditioning. But I saw the words, I've been struggling, from my friend. And I started to cry because it gave me the permission to acknowledge that I too had been struggling and was struggling currently, and it allowed me to see, oh, I can own this right now, how I feel, because it's temporary, but it's only going to move through me if I'm able to acknowledge that with people. Because I think I was trying to hold a brave face and say, I'm okay, and there's more, I'm gonna move on to the next one, next, which is the truth. And you can't really feel that and believe that for yourself until you've acknowledged the other pieces of it too, which is that heartbreak and that loss. I need this time to rest and recuperate and rejuvenate my soul and mend the broken heart.
And it might take a long
Yeah.
time. That's the piece that I also really want to harp on about resilience. There's this illusion that we have to snap back and it's quick. And as someone who is consistently just always bounce back from rejection after rejection and would just always keep going. The way that my company, the dissolution of my company hit me was something I never thought it would have taken me that long. I never thought the grief would have stayed that long. It still shows up. It's been this crazy process that I thought I would have been okay, but I also think there was a level, and as an actor, you relate when the rejections hit a critical mass. At a certain point, yes, you can be detached, you can move on, but at a certain point, you have to acknowledge the critical mass of the rejection that happens in these types of careers, whether you're an entrepreneur pitching investors, you're an actor auditioning, you're going out for corporate jobs and just can't find the right one. There is this piece of rejection in our careers that all of us experience, that there's a weight that's associated with it. And for me, it finally hit a critical mass and I had to acknowledge it. And it took a really long time. And the one thing, and that, like, also very frustrated during this process. There's plenty of times where I was like, okay, like, I'm over it. Why do I still feel like I have no energy? Why can't I move forward? And I really tried to give myself an immense amount of grace to acknowledge it, to process it, to name it, to heal it, did a whole keynote about it, basically made a video on my YouTube. You can see it's like a full funeral video for my company. And it still took as much time as it took. I was not in control of that grieving journey and still am not. That's the piece that people have to understand. It's okay. It's okay. And what I did in that time frame in which I felt broken, I just took jobs that helped me pay the bills. They did not take from me. They did not give to me. They paid the bills. And I just allowed myself to say, I don't have to make any big career decisions right now. I don't have to do anything. I just have to allow myself to get through this, because at some point, I believe I'll have energy again. At some point, I believe the thing that I want to do will unfold and show me what it is. But right now, I don't know what that is. I don't know how I'm going to figure out what that is. And I guess I don't need to know. And that's the part of the surrendering we're talking about, which is I trusted that I would find something again that lit me up. I trusted that there would be something that made me feel like giving all my energy, my life force energy to again.
Yeah, that's the difference, I think, between depression and hope, really. It's like hope is knowing there's something in the future that's for you, even if you don't see it yet. And that's faith in, too. It's being certain of something that you can't yet see. And it is so similar to losing a person in your life, whether it's a partner or someone in your family, or to death or a breakup or whatever it is that you don't just grieve and then close the box and it's never going to hit you again. It's always going to be there. It's going to pop up. Or if you're somebody who believes that there's spirits that are all around you once people pass on, those things come up again. And even with the elasticity and the rubber band analogy too, my bounce back might be a little bit thicker or quicker than it used to be, but that doesn't mean it doesn't still sting. It doesn't mean I still don't feel it.
A version of us died. I think that's the part that is what it felt like to me, was that a version of me that I believed in or saw reality from myself died. And with that came an understanding of the world. And so for you to have this lifelong dream, a sort of like timeline marker of your acting career, what you wanted to achieve, this embodied it, you finally get the chance to go for it, and it not work out, is I'm saying goodbye to this version of me that thought this is what I wanted. I'm saying goodbye to this version of me that thought this was going to be my life. And I don't know what this next version wants.
Yeah, a big frame of that as well was, I think I attached a piece of my worth to it too.
Ooh.
And I have really found that through this grief. And I feel like now I'm coming into this rebirthing process, this butterfly process, where I'm seeing that was there to a degree. And I'm realizing that doesn't mean my worth is not tied to this project. And I carried this fear around for a little bit. And to be quite honest, I went to a major family event last week that I was pretty nervous to go to, because again, no one in my family is in the arts. And everyone in my family, extended family and immediate family, knew that this was something that I was naming and claiming. I wrote Christmas cards to people, like saying, this is what my 2025 is going to be. So to face that head on, it was a fear. How am I going to stand tall in who I am without this? And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm letting this be a part of who I am and say a metric about myself, but that's absolutely not true. And actually, there's so much to say about myself through this experience of experiencing my dream getting so close to me and having that joy. That's what I can be proud of. But I think I realized I was scared to be viewed as a failure in front of my family. And I literally yesterday realized, oh, that's because I saw myself as one from this. And instead, I showed up to this event and I decided, you know what? I'm going to be completely me. Raw, authentic, honest. I don't have the energy to pretend that I'm okay. And I am okay overall. And I found that through therapy and resources in the last month and a half. And I'm like, but I'm not going to try to put it on or perform for anyone. I'm going to be completely me because I love that about myself. And this is something that I've never been able to do in front of my entire extended family, which is allow my true emotion to be expressed and not be scared of that or not try to stifle it. And I walked into this event and I had the most eye-opening, amazing conversations with people in my life, my extended family who I don't see often, whom I assumed might think of me differently because of this outcome. And it actually was met because I met them where I was at and was completely honest and again raw, was met with the most loving care, support, and respect for what I do. And it came out in so many, like there were like 4 different events over this 1 week. And every single night, there was a new person in my life that I never thought that I would receive some specific messaging from that I did. And I was like, this is a gift. And
well, this is the stuff that matters. This is the life stuff that really matters. Like the work stuff is amazing. It's soul calling. It's soul fulfilling. But when we die, we don't think about all of our accomplishments. We don't think about how much money we made. We think about those moments. We think about the like, I want to spend more time with my family. Oh, I didn't get to know my extended family in the way that I wish I could have. I didn't ask those. I did a thing with my mother a few years ago where I just asked her a lot of questions that I was curious about, things that we had sort of never talked about, mother to daughter, about her family, her parents, to understand her on a more intimate level. And it was one of the most meaningful things I've ever done in my life because I don't always feel fully understood by my parents. But my mom looked at me and she said this thing to me. We're both crying. And she said, you know, Denise, I know you think that I don't see you, but I do. I just don't always say the right things. And it was like really, I mean, to this day, I'm still like crying. It was really powerful because it was that thing that I was like, oh, I've been just telling a story about you to myself that isn't fair. And these moments when we slow down and you sit with your extended family and you tell them authentically how you feel, we allow this space for just such deeper, richer connection in our lives versus the sort of like companionship. I think in families, we just sort of take people for granted because we're around them all the time. I talk to them all the time. So like if I don't have interesting news to say, like, what are we going to talk about? There's plenty there to mine that exists already in terms of understanding who she is on a deeper level.
absolutely. That conversation is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And that just helped me see too, like there were many moments this last week where I know those conversations will stick with me for the rest of my life. And the interesting thing is too, back in the fall, I was up to make my Broadway acting debut. I was in final callbacks for it, and it was going to conflict with this family event. And when I didn't get it, I thought, oh man, that's a bummer. That's also another dream of mine that I always wanted. And I was like, well, maybe I can make it work if I could like miss blah, 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 blah. I could try to fly and do this and whatever. And I know deep down that it never would have been able to work. I never would have been able to do both. And I know if I had received that role, I probably would have chosen to do that because it's my Broadway acting debut. On the plane ride home from that final callback, it was when I got the actual audition for this dream project of mine. And so I was like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's it then. Okay, so I didn't get this because of this. So I'm like trying to almost thread it together in my head. Then I'm at the wedding, now it's the wedding. I'm at the family event and I'm here and I'm present and fully accountable for every single portion of that week. Every single ounce I'm soaking in. And I had all those meaningful conversations. And now I see I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I wouldn't trade one or the other. That time with those people and those conversations, again, are going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And not that any other experience necessarily wouldn't, but that's what life is about. It's such a fine line for artists and creatives when we do see our work as like another life that we are birthing truly out of us. And that is not our worth. That is not what our lives are really all about, encompassing. It's about these relationships. It's about connecting with humans, and whether that's our family or chosen family or whatever it is, it can get muddled sometimes when what we do through our work is connect with people, which is so beautiful. But also, my worth is not tied to connecting through people through that work. The real connection comes personally. And
Yeah.
I think seeing that future hindsight and knowing 3 months down the line, I will know exactly why these things happened. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll take years to understand. I might not.
I was going to say when that inner voice, if it's not over, when we understand what that is, we'll have you back on the podcast
Honestly,
to talk about it.
I can't wait. Because also too, it's like, I know that's going to come. I just don't know.
I don't know when it's going to come, but my point is, as and when it's a promise, we'll have you back on and talk about it, because I think that's how life works, is that we don't have to tell you the story as it's complete. We can tell you the story as it continues to develop. And that's a lot of what this space is all about. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Oh my gosh, of course. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that for a while, I think the beginning of the grieving process, I was trying to understand and trying to have answers.
We want to make sense.
Yeah, once I let go of that and allowed, again, the feelings to just feel and go through and move through, that's now when I realize, yeah, I don't know and I don't need to know. And I will know eventually.
No, because you have the trust. You're in concert with the universe. And so you will know. We just don't know when it's coming. But when it does, everyone stay tuned. We'll be here. We'll be here to talk about it. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's such a beautiful conversation. I didn't think I'd get so emotional, but obviously you touched me and you made me think of things that are close to my heart.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this space and bringing me on. And I can't believe I'm like, I don't want it to end. Wait, I still have so much more to talk about.
We'll have you back. So wait, can you tell everyone where to find you?
Where to find me? You can find me on Instagram at Kelly Lamor Wilson. I guess kind of TikTok, the same. I don't really post often, but it's if you want to see me singing, I'm there.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, just go see her sing.
Wait, I also have to.
Well, thank you.
I would love to acknowledge the fact that both Denise and I, our middle names are both Love. Yeah, Lamor is French for love. It means love in French.
I didn't realize it was, in my head, it was always Lamor. Like, I didn't realize it was supposed to be like L apostrophe.
Yeah, it was like an Ellis Island like spelling error kind of vibe. Yeah, it was like a surname.
I love that. The whole time I've known you, I've never known that.
Yeah, we're both like our middle names are both Love.
I love that. Okay, well, that's a really special note to end on. Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Boulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really, really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.